Hey everybody, it's Lindsay from North End Organic Nursery, and here is your Garden Minutes. So today I want to go through just planting garlic. I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible. First thing about garlic is, when do you plant them? So this is a crop that we actually plant in the fall, right around Halloween. Today's about the 6th or 7th of November, I believe. And so you want to plant them around Halloween before the ground freezes hard, but not too soon, because we don't want them to get planted and then have a bunch of top growth that will then just get frosted back, and it'll cause the plant to waste a lot of energy. So right about now is good. Anytime like a couple weeks ago to a couple weeks going forward, as long as we don't get a serious hard cold snap here in the Treasure Valley, we're good to go for planting garlic. I have 5 different varieties of garlic in 2 different categories. The 2 categories are either hardneck or softneck. Hardneck varieties, like this chestnut red, literally have a stiff stem in the middle, okay? A very stiff stem. The cloves go around that center stem. This stem will also produce a scape that is harvestable in the springtime, and actually you need to harvest them in order to redirect the energy back down into the bulb. Delicious, easy to peel, not great for storage. The other varieties are, so we actually have a, there's no name on here. I just know that this one is chestnut red. We have chestnut red for a hardneck variety. We have purple glacier for a hardneck variety. And it looks like I have some German red for hardneck varieties. So those are my hardnecks. My softnecks that I have are a Viola Francese and a Medford. I meant to grab an early Italian. That's another one of my favorites. Also Inchelium Red's a nice variety, but these are the ones that I have here today, so I'm going to plant them. So softneck varieties, as their name implies, have a pliable stem, okay? That stem will bend. There are cloves all the way to the center of this bulb, and when you pry this apart, you're going to have a combination of larger cloves and smaller cloves. One of the things I can touch on right now is that when you're planting your garlic, make sure you get the largest bulbs, and then you plant the largest cloves from the largest bulbs to beget the largest bulbs for next year. The smaller cloves off of smaller bulbs, or just smaller cloves in general, I don't throw away. I'll plant them kind of in the garden space, but separate from my main crop of garlic, and I'll plant them densely, maybe only an inch apart from each other, and then harvest them in the springtime as green garlic, just like you would eat a green onion, but it's green garlic, and they are delicious. You can also just eat them now if you don't want to wait that long. So I've got my, my 2 different varieties, softneck and hardneck. Now, what makes softneck more desirable than hardneck? Well, they both have their, which one did this come out of? I think that's a chestnut. They both have their advantages. The softnecks primarily are better keepers. That's why we always plant softnecks. This is also the variety that you must grow if you want to braid your garlic. Hardneck garlics, because of that rigidity, do not braid well. And these guys will make a beautiful garlic braid for this next year. Now, when do you harvest your garlic if you're planting it this time of year? You will actually harvest your garlic right around the 4th of July. So it's kind of nice to remember Halloween-ish time. I always say vampire-proof your garden for Halloween by planting garlic. And then 4th of July, you can liberate them out of your soil. I just came up with that one. Hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, so we're about the 4th of July. Now, if spring comes early and things start getting growing in February or March, you will probably be harvesting your garlic a little bit earlier. I think the earliest I've ever harvested garlic here in the Treasure Valley has been about June 12th to 14th. That was super early, but that was also when February just led right into March and we didn't have a frost after the 1st of April. Several years ago. That hasn't happened in a minute. So you just got to keep an eye on it. You want to look for, in the softneck garlics, for their lower leaves to start to wilt, and that will tell you that you might want to check your softneck garlics to see if they are ready. And the way you do that is just take a shovel or a pitchfork about a foot out from the bulb, pop it into the ground, pry up the soil around it, staying away from the bulb itself because you don't want to risk actually impaling or cutting that bulb. Plop it up. Does it look like it's well-rounded, lobed, fattened up? Get that stuff. If it does, then you're ready to harvest. If it doesn't, well, you can bring that one particular bulb inside and then just wait another week or so. The 2 weeks right before you're about to harvest, you want to start curing them in the soil, which means you will cut back the water, to nothing if that's possible. A lot of us have our garlic just in your garden beds like I do here, and if you can't hold back water from the rest of the garden at that time of the year, it's not the end of the world, but if you can hold back water, that's great. The other thing is, in the springtime, you're going to want to fertilize it as well, starting about the second week in March. I like to use a combination of fish and kelp. Gardener in Bloom makes a really nice fish, kelp, and molasses combination that you can just mix with water, and you water everything down with that, so you've just got everything in one spot. Molasses is nice because it's a fantastic soil stimulant for all the bacteria and microbes in the soil, so nice to have that in there as well. So I've got my garden beds behind me here. This is just where I had tomatoes and such. It's kind of nice planting garlic and designating a space here in the fall for garlic because of the fact that it will be a space holder for your crops for next year. So follow me on this. In the springtime, this bed will be occupied. You cannot plant anything else with garlic. It does not like to share space. So this garlic will be completely occupied during those early spring months when we're putting in our hot crops. Come 4th of July, you harvest out your garlic, and then you can mix some soil or some fertilizers back in, some azomite, some compost, just kind of let it sit, chill out for a minute, and then by about the beginning of August, you can start planting your fall garden. So your fall garden, then you harvest again around Halloween sometimes, and you can plant your garlic again, or you just let the hot crop gardens die with the first frost and then plant your garlic there. But it kind of makes it so that you have a placeholder for that awesome third season, which is the fall garden, where you can plant all your cold hardy vegetables. So I've got a fairly nice fluffy soil here. I do want to rake it out just a bit. I really like these adjustable rakes. They go open if you're going to do leaves, or a little bit narrow if you need them to be rigid. I'm just going to kind of smooth it out a bit. This bed's a little over full. I actually took some of my containers that I had tomatoes and stuff in this summer. I just dumped them into here. They were good soil, and I wanted to empty the bags and do something different with them next year. This is my way of recycling my soil. Soil doesn't go bad, you know. You don't have to have brand new soil every single year when you're gardening, in containers especially. So I'm just evening out the best I can. The next thing I want to do is I want to add some fertility to it. So azomite is a mineral powder. It stands for A to Z of minerals, and fantastic product to use in your garden beds spring and fall. Some of it may not be even available to your plants until the springtime once it kind of breaks down into the soil, but what it does is it adds a mineral spectrum of nutrients that helps the flavor so much. It helps the vitality of the plants because it's getting kind of some of those trace minerals that you don't often get. People come into the store a lot looking for specific minerals in order to bolster their soils according to their soil test. A to Z of minerals in here. It's usually like a one-time prescription that I can give them. So the recommended rate for this is about 1 to 2 pounds per 10 square feet. This is a 4-foot by 8-foot bed, so I've got 32 square feet. I want to use about 3 pounds of this product in here. This is a 6-pound box, so about half the box, maybe be a little bit more generous than that. I'm going to just go ahead and open this up and sprinkle it around. And then we'll kind of get back into raking this back in here again. Okay, I put about half a box down. I'm going to leave that there. The next thing I'm going to put down is fish bone meal. Now, garlic is a root crop. Roots need phosphorus. Phosphorus is responsible for roots, fruits, flowers, and sweetness when it comes to gardening. So we want to make sure there's sufficient phosphorus. Our soils here don't tend to be super phosphorus deficient. If you're not sure about your soil, go ahead and get it tested. I find that a little oomph with a little phosphorus always helps my my rooting crops like carrots and bulbs, which bulbs being one of the things that you can throw garlic into. Also for things like tomatoes and other fruiting vegetables, phosphorus is a great thing. Fish bone meal also has a lot of other trace minerals and calcium, so it's always a nice thing to put down. So I'm going to put down the recommended rate of this, which is about 2.5 to 5 pounds per 100 square feet. So this is 32 square feet, so about a third of that. So let's say it's 5 pounds, so looking at about a pound and a half for this space. Hopefully my math isn't too horrible. The great thing about organics though is that you don't have to worry about being spot on your measurements. You're not gonna burn anything like you will with synthetics. Don't use synthetics, use organics. Organics are carbon-based products that won't burn. So fish bone meal, it smells like a fish. I'm gonna put some of this down now. Okay, spread out that fishy stuff. Alternatively, you can put some of this just directly in the hole as you're planting, but because the roots are going to be pulling from a bunch of different directions, I like putting it on top and I'll work it in. If you're a tiller, you can till it in. There's no wrong way to get it to the plant, just get it to the plant. This is all nice slow release stuff, so it'll be there to feed the garlic all throughout the winter and first thing in the spring. The last nutrient that I almost always use when I'm planting garlic is kelp meal. Kelp meal is amazing. I use it in all of my gardening. It has some very unique qualities to it that actually simulate plant growth hormone. So it helps plants deal with cold stress, heat stress. It has a fair amount of potassium in it, lots of micronutrients, lots of minerals, great goodness from the seed. This one says about 1 to 2 pounds per 100 square feet. Again, this is a 32 square foot, about a third of 100 square feet. This is a 1 pound box. I'm gonna go ahead and use the whole box. It's overkill, just a scotch, but again, you just don't have to worry about it too much when you're talking about organics. Now that we have all this in here, we're gonna go ahead and rake it in, kind of get it incorporated into the soil. Okay, I have incorporated the ingredients into the soil for fertilizer. Next thing is going to be to prep for planting. I am going to use what's called a biointensive planting method or diagram. So what that essentially is you're gonna plant your garlic about 6 inches apart. Now if I were doing long rows, I would probably wanna do a 6-inch spacing and then maybe 18 inches to 24 feet in between rows so I could run a tiller through there or walk up and down. But because these are raised beds, I don't need to do that. I'm going to intensively plant these beds as to utilize the space without crowding each other. So, given that 6 inches, what I will do is approximately plant a garlic about every 6 inches going across. Then I will start on the other side, offset it, and do the same thing, but what I end up having is spacing that looks like triangles. Now I'm gonna come up 6 inches, over across, again make holes. Now this is just me sort of visually spacing and I'm not actually digging holes here. That'll come later, but I'm just sort of getting an idea of the spacing that I'm gonna use. So about 6 inches apart, but in triangles. So once I kind of get my spacing, I'm gonna go back with my trowel. Now if you've got, it just depends on your soil. If you've got soil where you can just dibble down and make your hole, that's great. My soil is really composty and loose. Garlic loves compost, by the way. So as I'm trying to dibble a hole, it just fills right back in. That's not gonna do me any good. So I'm either gonna just force my clove down, which is often what I've done when I've got really soft soil to work with, or I'm going to take a trowel, open up the soil and drop it down. We're looking for 2 to 3 inches of soil on top of the garlic clove. So that means that we want the very tippy top of the garlic clove to be having at least that much on top of it. I've had conversations with people who plant them down 6 inches. There's really not an exact, you have to do it this much. 3 inches, 2 to 3 inches is about where I like it. 6 inches, people have had that work, so give it a shot if you want to go down that deep. Now, the deeper you go, the more resilience you have to what's called heaving. Soil tends to heave in the especially late winter, early spring months as the ground starts to thaw and then it'll freeze again. And it'll thaw and then it'll freeze again. And that motion literally can toss stuff out. So you want to make sure that your garlic is planted deep enough, and that you cover it with mulch if that's what you need to do as well. So once I've got my spacing kind of worked out, now I'm going to grab my garlic. I don't recommend that you break apart your garlic well in advance of planting. It will actually start to dry it out faster, and you want it to be as fresh and ready to go as possible. So I could have done this right before I started, but it's just not that hard, especially if you're not planting a ridiculous amount, to just do it on the spot. Now I'm going through my cloves, going to see, this is a beautiful thing about hardnecks. Almost all the cloves are fairly consistent and of plantable size. So, here's a few small guys. I'm gonna hold these small guys off to the side and plant them as my green garlic, or turn them into delicious soup of some kind. Or pasta. I'm getting hungry. Got them all up. Okay, so when you're planting your garlic, the part of the garlic that was the root needs to stay pointing downwards, just like it came out of the ground. This top pointy part, that will be the part that's up. The soil should be 2 to 3 inches above that top part. So, like I said, my soil is really super loose, so I'm going to just force it down and then cover it up. Going to force it down, cover it up. You do not peel the garlic in advance. The garlic does not need to be peeled. It does not prefer to be peeled. You could also do this with a trowel, no problem. So I'm going to do all of my chestnut first. Remember, I'm doing my bio-intensive method here, where the plantings are about 6 inches apart. Now, if you guys haven't learned this about me by now, I'm not a retentive gardener. I've grown garlic commercially for years when I've had farms, and I've never had an issue with this method. So I encourage you all to have fun with your plantings and not get too worried about everything being just kind of squared off. And so I'm going to continue on from here and do probably a soft neck variety, and then a hard neck variety, and then a soft neck variety, and a hard neck variety. My rationale for that is that if I accidentally not sure who is who or what is what, at least I can tell the difference in the springtime between my hard necks and my soft necks. In case a label blows away or whatever, I can at least say, well, this is the end of this one, the beginning of the next one. So I'm gonna leave this little dibbled row down here just to kind of see where I'm going next. And on this side, I'm gonna go ahead and cover it up. My bed's really full of soil. Normally this is where I would use the Harvest Supreme that I'm sitting on right now to cover it up. And I might come and do that actually still. I just recently filled this up with the extra soil from my fabric pots. So this will settle a bit still. When it does settle, I'm gonna add, I'd say at least 2 inches of this stuff. It'll act like a good mulch on top of the soil. It'll help replenish the soil from last year. And it will also kind of provide a little bit of insulation. Remember that with garlic, we're not trying to keep the cold out. They need the cold in order to grow and to, it's called stratification, so that they can form a bulb. What we're trying to do is just keep the cold in, so that as the spring comes along, the freezing and thawing doesn't cause any heaves. I like using the Harvest Supreme for that. Other things you can use, your leaves. Leaves are a fantastic resource this time of year. Yeah, a lot of people have them. This house actually, if you've been following us at all, has almost no leaves because the previous owners had no trees, which we have planted some, but I've been thinking about running around my neighborhood and picking up other people's leaves and using them myself. Nobody has any objections to that. Leaves are a great option. Straw is another option. Leaves have a lot of great minerals in them too to act as a mulch. I might also be using some floating row cover, like you can see on the beds back there, in order to keep my cat from being in here. Also squirrels, at least until they get established in here and kind of come up and create a little bit of a plant maze. I don't want my cat coming in here and using it as a toilet. Other options are things like upturned plastic forks if you want to keep cats and squirrels out, mostly cats. But the floating row cover is something I'll probably end up putting on top of here just to make sure that I don't have it be a litter box. Watering. It'd be great to give this a good watering in. I don't see a lot of rain in the forecast, so that might be something I need to do. After that first watering, things don't dry out that quickly here, and we'll probably be getting some weather eventually, and it'll do all the watering it needs again until springtime. And I will come back out here in the springtime and go through what to do next when we get to that point. So for today, we're just gonna stop it there. Get out and plant some garlic. It's delicious, it's healthy, it's easy to grow, and it's a fantastic crop to do organically. Quick note, don't let the weeds become an issue. Garlic does not compete well. And so if you have a weedy garlic patch, you will have poor performing garlic. So keep the weeds out. They like to be only children in their space. When we give them that 6 inches between, they can't tell that anybody else is around, and they do great. You start letting a bunch of weeds grow in here, they will suffer. This has been Lindsay with Garden Minutes in the North End Organic Nursery. If you have any other questions, please mention them below in this feed. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Garden Minutes. Click the like on this video. And if you want to get notifications for future videos, make sure you ring that little bell that says notifications. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.